angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology, conspiracy, discovery, special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV.
Believe it or not, there's a connection between the Freemasons, the ancient Mayans, and the ancient Egyptian god Osiris, and they all point to the year 2016. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert in studio with my best friend and wife, Sharon K. Gilbert.
Hi, honey.
And the author of a book that is very timely and very conveniently has the name of the year in the name, Zenith 2016. Skywatch TV CEO, Tom Horn.
Hi.
Tom. You did some really remarkable research, some dots connected here that were eye-popping. You've done it in 2012 and again in 2016. What were the Mayans seeing, and what are some of the other, well, even Christian pastors and preachers, famous ones, who pointed to this period of time that we're in right now as being especially significant?
Yeah, you know, this was probably one of the most incredible periods of study for me and research. And a lot of people that have read Zenith 2016, you know, they say that's my magnum opus. It's the best thing I ever did. And it's probably because it was actually the last time I had an entire year that I could dedicate to just doing research and writing. So it was timely. But what had happened was, you know, as you know, everybody in 2005, 6, 7, 8, they were all saying that the Maya had said that the world was going to end in the year 2012, right? And so I, at that time, had just kind of a mild curiosity about it, but I wanted to find out, what did the Maya really say? Is this all just a bunch of New Agers? They're making up stuff, or they're kind of, you know, misquoting the Maya, or what was going on? And so I wound up getting the research information from an academic by the name of Richard Luxton. And he was the guy that befriended the modern Maya and got permission from them after he gained their trust to translate a book called the Book of the Kumiel, or the Council Book of the Yucatecan Maya, that had been written down over 500 years ago, and he translated it into English. And so his was the work that I was following, and was learning that no, the Maya never said the world was going to end in the year 2012. What they said was more interesting to me because it started sounding very much like the prophecy off the Great Seal of the United States, the Novus Ordo Seclorum.
Yeah.
What they were saying was, at the end of the long count in December 21st, 2012, essentially the cosmos was going to roll over into a final age of mankind, a final epoch that would witness some stuff that sounded like it was taken right out of the book of Revelation. Two great men would appear on the earth, sounded like the false prophet and the Antichrist. And then the judgment of God with famine and pestilence, and sounding like the Great Tribulation,
very much so,
right?
yeah.
So I started really getting into it, but I literally sat up in bed one night after I had read where Richard Luxton wrote this. He said, the dates that accompany the illustrations. Now he's talking about the jaguar shaman here, the Chilambalam, and some stuff that he had written, stuff that he had said, and provided even diagrams. But he was a convert to Christianity as a result of the Spanish missionaries, the jaguar shaman. So he was mixing his Mayan beliefs with what he was finding in the apocryphal books of the Bible, right? And he was prophesying about the end. And what Luxton said was, he focused on the final 13 Katuns, which is a period of 19.7 years. I don't want to get us buried here in details, right? But he said that final 13-stepped countdown began in what he called the colonial count, 1776.
Whoa!
Which would be followed by 13 steps and then the return of their God. And those 13 steps were 19.7 years. So I'm laying there in bed one night, I'm saying, boy, these prophecies of the Chilambalam sure remind me of the Sibyl. And wait a minute, 1776, that's the base of the uncapped pyramid on the Great Seal,
Yes.
which also is 13 steps. And some of the leading American Freemasons had always said that those 13 steps represented distinct periods of time. And so I got out, my copy of the Great Seal, 1776, started counting the cartoons, 19.7 years, and saw where if you got to the top, right beneath the all-seeing eye would be the year 2012. But I also found out that the Gregorian calendar, our calendar,
Yeah.
the equivalent of the cartoon was 20 years, and that ended in 2016, 3.5 years later. So I literally came out of my bed and said, wait a minute, this can't possibly, if it's a coincidence, it's a doozy,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
To have 1776, 13 steps over which is hanging the all-seeing eye. And so that kind of launched me in the book Zenith 2016. And what people will find when they get that book and read it, they'll be astonished at how over thousands of years and from all kinds of cultures that had no connection. This was before the internet and iPhones and all
Yeah,
that,
yeah.
right? No way to communicate. They all were fixating on the year 2012 and 2016. The Maya were fixated on it. The Aztec had their own cosmology about the end time, and they talked about the year 2012. Soon after, they said, Bolan Yakteku, the god of the underworld, who is down there guarding the bones of the giants. They say he holds the key to the bottomless pit. In Mayan cosmology, they say he's going to rise up to the surface of the earth and the giants are going to come with him. And then these 9 support gods are going to descend down from the heavens. So it sounds like great deception, and the pit is opening up from the book of Revelation, and the
9.
giants are coming up out of the earth.
The Aeneid.
Yes, very much. Yeah.
So, but one thing led to the other. I found that Jonathan Edwards, at the turn of the century, writing letters at the university level saying the Antichrist will appear in the year 2016. We found in the Zohar, because I had sent out this email. When this came to me in a revelation, I got up and got on my computer, right? Emailed every smart person I know. Everybody's smarter than me. I need to ask you a question, right? And it was, do you know of any connection with the Great Seal of the United States and Mayan prophecy? And we can talk a bit more about how I connected those dots in a moment. But J.R. Church, right, who used to lead Prophecy in the News and got cancer, died a few years ago, he emailed me back and he said, Tom, he said, I don't know anything about the Great Seal, but he said, did you know that in the Zohar, the rabbis from 700 years ago pinpointed when the Messiah would appear? And in the Zohar, in the Vieira section of the Zohar, he showed me this. I went and read it and found it. And, it said that in the year 5773, the Messiah will make himself known privately to the rabbis in Israel. 5773 in in the Jewish calendar was 2012 to 2013 in the Gregorian calendar. So that was what JR wanted me to know, that they had saw the year 2012 too, right?
Yeah.
Another group of people 700 years ago writing in medieval Aramaic. And this book, of course, the Zohar, is very important to Kabbalistic rabbis, mystical rabbis. And so anyway, I found that. What I've noticed is interesting is the way that it's written in there. It sounds like it is even part of the prophecy of the popes, in that they say that the Messiah will appear in Jerusalem in 2012 to 2013, make himself known to the rabbis in Jerusalem, and sometime after that, he will begin making himself known to the people of the world. Well, you and I know that since then until even just this last week, major rabbis in Israel, several of them, their most respected rabbis, saying that the Messiah is here and his manifestation is imminent, even telling the kids that are going to their, to the rabbi schools not to leave Jerusalem and be traveling. It's that imminent. It's that close to
And
him.
they're pointing to very specific prophecies issued by rabbis from several hundred years ago. The Vilna Gaon is one in particular. The genius of Vilna, which is the capital of Lithuania, said that the Messiah would appear after Russia took Constantinople, which is Istanbul, and the Crimea. Now, of course, Russia captured the Crimea from Ukraine in spring of 2014, and now with the feud going on between Russia and Turkey, the Russians still haven't really paid back Turkey for shooting down that plane in November. So there are some possibilities there that we might see some open conflict, especially as the Turks are agitating for an invasion of Syria where there are Russian soldiers deployed. So that's just one instance where the rabbis today are saying this from 300 years ago says that we should be looking for Messiah's appearance imminently. And there are groups of rabbis who have opened office in Jerusalem specifically to search with computer algorithms the Torah codes, looking through the numerical Hebrew equivalents to find messages, and the years 5775, 5776 keep appearing over and over. And that would be the period of time from September of 2014 through October of this year, 2016.
Right. Yeah.
So,
yeah. Well, I just was going to say earlier, you talked about how we were sort of fed the lie that 2012 actually was the end of the world. And of course, we all dismissed it and said, hey, we're still here. Yay, 2013 is here. The fact is, I think the majority of people, not you folks watching this show, because you guys know better, the majority of people in the world think that, oh, we dodged a bullet in 2012. We're still here. They're not paying any attention to any of this, but it's right here in the open.
Right.
If we just look.
Right. Well, there are videos from 2008 and 2009 where I was doing shows with Gary Stearman on Prophecy in the News and Sid Roth, and I was saying that's not what the Maya said. They're not saying the earth is going to end in 2012. What they were saying was more interesting, and it sounds very much like they were, they're quoting the Novus Ordo Seclorum, that there is going to come the dawn of a final age of man. Now, here's another thing that's very interesting is when you read the Novus Ordo Seclorum and Anuet Coeptus, these are taken from Virgil's Aeneid and his Eclogue, in which he's actually quoting the Cumae Sibyl, the most powerful Sibyl or Sibylline prophetess who was a prophetess of the god Apollo.
Yes. Apollyon.
What the New Testament would call Apollyon, the very spirit that's going to come up out, there he comes, Bolanyak Deku and all the giants, right? From their mythos to ours, because demons also know that this is going to happen. And so they try to capture those stories, misguide people into making it appear as if they're the ones with the revelation. Like the Sibylline prophetess did in the New Testament, where she's following the Apostle Paul around saying, these are men of God, in order to try to stake some kind of claim that she too is a true prophetess
and so Paul
of God.
drove the demon out of her. Yeah.
So he gets frustrated and casts the demon out of her, and then everybody's mad now.
Yeah.
But so now these rabbis, though, they're behaving as if they're either total believers or somebody has made himself known to them, because that's actually how they're talking. They're saying he's here and he's going to manifest himself. Now you've got a pope who also is a believer in prophecy. He not only is a believer in prophecy, he's also started to prophesy, and that's kind of spooky. He's now telling people, get ready, the end is here, you need to prepare yourself. He's saying these things himself.
And he believes 2016 is special too, because he declared this a year of grace.
Yes. And to that end, it was just announced just prior to the recording of this that he's sending out over 1,100 specially handpicked super confessors to hear the confessions of people who have committed what they call reserved sins under Roman Catholic doctrine, sins that normally only the Pope can forgive and offer absolution for. Because apparently they feel that something is happening and they need to expedite the process. They don't have time to go through the special Vatican Council, which was the normal process, going back to the 12th century. Now, we know this is not biblical. And we know that the only sin that is really unforgivable is blaspheming the Holy Spirit. So we're not saying that this is authentic doctrine, but we're trying to understand what they believe. The Pope, the rabbis, these other folks who are looking for these years to try to understand why they believe what they believe and how it will affect how they act. But clearly the Pope is believing that something is happening soon. That they're even delegating one of these super confessors to go to the Arctic Circle and hear the confessions of Eskimo.
Right.
Okay, so this is something unique.
And we're trying to cover so many bases in this one show, but this even goes into the ISIS apocalyptic vision, where they believe that Muhammad showed them, 400 some years ago, or at least a hadith ascribes him prophesying this war that would come at the end of time. But they've made a video that shows them, marching on Rome behind the Colosseum, and they come down into Rome. But they're, in their apocalyptic end time vision, there will be an army called the Army of Rome, maybe something is going to happen. This is what I suspect. Something is going to happen. Maybe ISIS uses a weapon of mass destruction, which then causes a coalition army to come together. But the Pope calls for the rejuvenation of the Christian rules for just war.
Just war.
And if he does do that, as far as both the world and the Muslims would see this as a battle being fought under the banner of Rome. So it really feels like there are a lot of people that believe that the year 2016, and they have for thousands of years, is very, very significant. Now, we're going to find out. By the way, I'm not saying that in 2016, we're going to enter the Great Tribulation or the Antichrist is going to appear or anything else. What I am saying is when you read that book, you'll find out that dozens of people for thousands of years did say that. And that's really the question of the book. Why?
Well, why were the disciples inspired to ask Jesus himself, what are the signs of the end of the age?
Yeah, what are the signs of the end of the age? And as David Flynn, our old friend that's in heaven now, talking this over with people smarter than I am, obviously.
But his brother Mark is carrying on.
But he said that he was talking about the precision of the equinoxes and that sort of thing. David, right?
Oh, gosh.
I can barely quote him
Josh
while I'm
Peck
thinking.
could follow it.
But he said that the conditions of the stars were exactly the same in the days of Noah as they would be following the year 2012. So that when Jesus said, as it was in the days of Noah, he was talking about the alignment of the planets and a lot of other really deep things being the same as
If that's new to you, by the way, you have the David Flynn collection.
Yeah, we do have the
listen
David
to the
Flynn
story.
collection. They can get it and read Greater Minds Than Mine. But the Cherokee Indians, 200 years ago, and you can get these at the academic level. They're called the Chickamauguan Star Constellation Prophecies, or more simply, the Rattlesnake Prophecies.
Yeah.
200 some years ago, they go into a whole apocalyptic frenzy, and they write down how in the year 2012, the end of this era will come. Following that will be a final era of mankind. But they saw the return of what the Aztec would call Quetzalcoatl, what the Maya call Kukulkan, right? This serpent that has the power of air, sometime shortly thereafter, 2012, returning. Well, this is the book of Revelation, and this great war between God and the dragon, right?
Yeah.
Well, we need to take a break, but I want to ask when we come back, how the Freemasons managed to incorporate this period of time, this step pyramid, and leading to the period of time that we're in right now into the Great Seal. We'll discuss that and tell you how you can get a copy of Zenith 2016 when Skywatch TV continues after this.
From the time she was little, Nita dreamed of horses. Every childhood fantasy rode on the back of a heroic white steed, coming to save the day.
I don't know how long I've had this love in my heart for horses. It's just always been there. And when we were little girls, my sister and I would play all day long. I was always the white horse and she was always the little pink pig.
Let's pretend Lightning and Rosie can fly.
But everything changed in a heartbeat. On December 9th, 1971, a tragic car accident claimed the life of my dad and my best friend and my little sister. And I wondered after that if there was anything left to believe in.
Move aside, let the ambulance through. Please move aside.
As a child of 13, I felt like I had lost practically everything. And I wondered, is this it? I mean, where do I go from here? I could not have imagined back then how God could use horses, of all things, to restore my faith and vision for the future.
Starting April 19th, get your copy of Nita Horn's inspirational new book, No Fences, and learn for the first time her amazing story of loss, survival, determination, and healing. How the vision and love God gave her for these beautiful and majestic animals eventually led to the 150-acre Whispering Ponies Ranch, a general retreat facility, as well as a premier training location that specializes in using and gifting therapeutic animals to benefit the herding. Other care facilities, schools, and ministries across the nation.
When God puts something in your heart, it's there for a lifetime.
On the back of the dollar bill in your wallet is apparently a prophecy that points to the year in which we are living right now. Welcome back to Skywatch TV. We're talking with Tom Horn, the author of Zenith 2016. How did the Freemasons incorporate this into the Great Seal? What did they know about what the ancient Mayans knew?
Yeah, well, you know, and once again, we started the show out early with me saying I literally sat up in bed one day because I'm reading the Maya saying 1776, 13-step countdown, then the return of their God. Well, that's the symbolism on the reverse side of the Great Seal of the United States, where it's got 1776, 13 steps, and then the all-seeing eye. And I did want to know if that was just an amazing coincidence or if the early Freemasons were influenced by the belief of the Mesoamericans. So I started doing the research, and when people get the book, Zenith 2016, because there's 2 or 3 chapters dedicated to this paper trail, if you will, they'll find out that you know, Manly P. Hall and others said that all of the most esoteric knowledge of the American Freemasons came from the red men out of Mesoamerica. So you start finding out they were heavily influenced, but we found even more evidence than that. There was an Italian painter who was famous by the name of Constantino Brumidi, and he worked for the Vatican and he worked for the churches in Rome doing paintings and stuff. Well, he migrates to the United States in the 1800s. He becomes an American citizen and goes to work for the Jesuits in New York, who were considered at that time to be kind of the real power, right? And certainly Rome's presence and influence in the Americas in those early years. But abruptly in 1854, they send Brumidi to go to Mexico. For what purpose? To make copious notes of the Aztec calendar stone that ends in the year 2012, right? He comes back from that trip. He goes directly to Washington, D.C., where he meets with Quartermaster General Montgomery C. Meigs, who was the guy that was supervising the construction of the dome, the U.S. Capitol dome and the wings of the dome. He's appointed to be, you know, the official government painter. And boy, this could be several shows. He goes inside the U.S. Capitol dome and goes up into the belly of Isis, right? The dome. And he paints the apotheosis of George Washington. George Washington becoming a god. Now, you guys had Mike Heiser on recently talking about the divine council and the 70 angels that were given authority over the nations and then they fell. Well, if you follow that through history, and nobody knows exactly when this happened, but in Gnostic Christianity and in the Rosicrucian and some of the early occult movement, the 70 angels became 72. Nobody knows exactly when or why that happened, but they became 72. Well, in the apotheosis of Washington, right below it are 72 pentagrams for the purpose of controlling these angels that are over the world. It's highly occultic in nature. Right below that is what's called the frieze of American history. Now, if you can still, I think you can still go on a tour of the Capitol Dome. Go inside and stand under the dome. Look at the frieze of American history. And of all of the things that Constantino Brumidi could have painted, right, in the frieze of American history, he paints Montezuma and Cortez meeting each other, and here is the giant Aztec calendar stone that came to its conclusion in the year 2012. But right below that, he paints what's called the sacred fire, which means it relit in December of 2012 to give birth to a final era of mankind. So we were able to find fabulous evidence that the Freemasons were very much aware of the belief system of the Maya and did incorporate it not just into the Great Seal. The entire city is laid out as an ancient Egyptian grid with the dome. It's based on the story of Isis and Osiris. But the purpose of those are to serve as a generator to draw the seed of Osiris out of the underworld so that he could be incarnate in the Pharaoh so that Egypt would have divine representation. And we found out that every inauguration of every American president across town at the House of the Temple, the Herodome, the official headquarters of the 33rd degree Freemasons, every time a president's inaugurated, they conduct the raising of Osiris ceremony so that America can have divine representation, but more so that this prophecy can someday be fulfilled and that the leader of America will become Osiris, Apollo, incarnate, what the New Testament would call the arrival of the Antichrist.
Oh my goodness.
Well, we don't make predictions, we don't set dates, but it is important to understand what other people think because, especially when it comes to occultic beliefs, to understand the designs of the enemy. And to that end, to help understand and break the code, Tom Horn's book, Zenith 2016, we're offering it to you for the list price of $19.95. But with that, these two books by Grant Jeffrey at no charge while supplies last, One Nation Under God and Shadow Government. And if supplies run out.
One Nation Under Attack.
Big
Excuse difference.
Me. Yeah, that is a big difference. One Nation Under Attack. If we run out of the Grant Jeffrey books, because there is a limited supply of those, we will offer other books of similar value along with Zenith 2016. Again, $19.95 plus shipping and handling from the Skywatch TV store, skywatchtvstore.com. Tom, fascinating work. It's an honor to be here to pick your brain about this stuff on a daily basis.
Well, we're going to find out if everybody was right.
That's exactly right. For Tom Horn and Sharon K. Gilbert, we thank you for watching as we keep watch. I'm Derek Gilbert, and this is Skywatch TV. To celebrate the release of Nita Horn's inspiring new book, No Fences, Skywatch TV would like you to tell your story, because after all, even if you don't think so, you actually have a story.
Send in your story, and we are going to choose the 10 best, and they'll be published for Christmas release in an anthology of those stories, along with the book that you buy that is actually only $19.95. Am I right on that?
That's correct.
For free. Tom Horn, crazy guy, he's throwing in a journal, which on its own, most of these retail for $20 on their own. So this journal is to help you start writing your story. When you buy the book, not only are you going to be enrolled in this and you can send in your story, but you'll get a plastic pony, you'll get a journal of your own, and the proceeds from the book are going to help fund the studio we're building for Skywatch Women, and Nita Horn is going to be one of our panel members.
The 10 authors who are selected for the anthology, published by Defender Publishing in time for Christmas, will also receive a $500 cash prize.
That'll go a long way at Christmas time, won't it?
Yes, it will. Even if your story is not one of those selected for the anthology, if you've taken the time to write your story, you've left a legacy for your children and for your grandchildren.
Amen to that.
For complete instructions and details on this opportunity, please log on to skywatchtv.com/nofences.
Angels waging war in the unseen realm. Global events fulfilling biblical prophecy. Eternal life. What lies beyond mortality? From analyzing the paranormal from a biblical worldview to the discussion of cutting-edge science and technology. Conspiracy. Discovery. Special investigative reports. Unafraid to explore the challenging issues facing humanity. Welcome to another edition of Skywatch TV.
President of the United States is insane. That's what the deep state wants you to think. Welcome to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. For the next 4 weeks, we're going to be discussing the deep state and globalists and how they are at war with average Americans. Joining me on this panel, and this is a unique honor and privilege for me, going from your left to right, the authors of some important new books from Defender Publishing. First, the author of books such as Never Submit, Future War, and the new book, The Deeper State, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Maginnis. Bob, welcome. The best-selling author, longtime pastor and best-selling author of books like The Rabbi Who Found Messiah, When the Lion Roars, and his new book, wonderful title, Gods and Thrones. We welcome Pastor Carl Gallups. Carl.
Thank you, Derek. Thank you.
And the CEO of Defender Publishing, author of many books, most recently the co-authored book with Steve Quayle, Unearthing the Lost World of the Cloud Eaters, his new book, which includes contributions from the previous two gentlemen, Gary Stearman, Althea Anderson, and yours truly. The new book, Saboteurs. We welcome Tom Horn back in the studio. Tom. The political class in the United States and around the world has made no secret of his hatred, and I don't think that's too strong a word, of Donald Trump. Colonel Maginnis, I'll start with you. Why has the elites, why have the elites, not just here but around the world, reacted so viscerally to Donald J. Trump?
Well, Derek, Trump is not one of them. He's not a globalist. He's not a progressive. He's a businessman, a billionaire who happens to love America. And he comes in with an agenda that is going to ruin them if he's successful. Plus, you know, he's coming to Washington and he promised he's going to drain the swamp. And all those swamp creatures feel terrified that he's going to fulfill what he said he was going to do. And so they have been dragging their feet. They have been trying to undermine him. They have trying to, create all sorts of things on the side that are going to draw away from what he seeks to accomplish.
Now, Carl, as a former law enforcement officer and still with contacts in law enforcement, I think most notably retired Sheriff Joe Arpaio of Maricopa County, Arizona, with whom you worked a bit in helping to get out the word about his investigation into the authenticity of the birth certificate that was published by the Barack Obama White House. Right. What do you see going on here? I mean, what is the just from what you hear in the contacts around that investigation? What sort of motive might the deep state have for responding as it has to President Trump?
Yes. Well, I agree with everything Lieutenant Colonel Maginnis said, and also don't forget that the Trump presidency came on the heels of Brexit, which really disrupted the globalist agenda and globalist world. It shocked them.
Caught them by surprise.
It caught them by surprise, and they did everything they could to delegitimize and marginalize that event. And then, in the midst of it, here comes a billionaire, businessman, builder, really out of nowhere as far as politically speaking goes, defeats this whole field of in the preliminaries, and then winds up going against the Clinton machine and defeats that. And then, as Colonel Maginnis just so brilliantly elucidated, that now the globalist structure of the swamp creatures are going out of their minds. They want him out somehow, or at least marginalized and his teeth pulled out, his teeth of power. So the question to me, I see all of this. I've been seeing all of this. And the angst inside of me, I think a lot of America feels, because we know, as you said, that he has America at heart. He wants the best for America. He's there. I don't see him with a halo over his head as an angel from heaven. But I mean, he says the kinds of things that most Americans still value deeply. And so in the midst of that, I also see the very deeply spiritual side, and I take Ephesians 6 at heart, that we see things in the physical, we see the political, we see the geopolitical, we have to live in that, we see it, but we also need to be very mindful. Either the Bible's the Word of God or it's not. Either the Apostle Paul wrote under inspiration of the Holy Spirit or he didn't. Jesus is God with us or he's not. And of course I believe it is, and he is, and he is. Then we have to take at heart that our battle, truly, the foundation of the battle we're watching, is not in the physical realm.
Right.
There is something very spiritual, very prophetic about what's happening. So yes, I was involved with Sheriff Joe Arpaio. To me, that's a foundational element of what we're watching. I mean, just consider the elements of all of this with them. And the birth certificate issue, I'm just going to say this very quickly since you raised it. It was a man by the name of Donald Trump in 2011 who goaded then sitting President Barack Obama into putting that document up there, which has now been absolutely forensically, criminal investigation proved to be a template up fake forgery. And so now he's president. The man who affected that is now the president. The deep state, the globalist agenda has the potential, as you said, of being completely, well, not completely, but thwarted, maybe set back by 50 years.
And Derek, let me jump in for a second too to a takeoff of what you're talking about that the public is going to learn about, and that is that we actually are releasing with these books and exclusively through these programs what's been called off the record, right, with yourself, and you go into a lot of. I think people are going to be astonished, really, at the police investigation and what you wound up having proved by two different laboratories. We're not going to get into that right here and now, but we want people to know that may have suddenly had their ears perked up to your comments about Joe Arpaio and this document being proven, because if it is forensically proven by two different laboratories to be a falsified document, then America, we've got a bigger criminal investigation here that really ought to be happening from the highest levels of government authorities. But the other thing you said is behind all of this is really a spiritual warfare, right? Behind much of what we're seeing, and so, this guy, this outsider, this non-bohemian club member, right? Donald Trump comes in. He's the people's choice. He's a non-establishment. He's not from a dynastic family, right, of presidents. The people elected him because they no longer believe in or trust what is happening within Congress and within the entrenched establishment. And now they want to know, why isn't things getting done? We elected him to represent us, to get certain things done. But don't forget, he declared war. If you watch his inaugural speech, it is a declaration of war against the elitists, even against the occult dynamics. Time magazine, the first thing they do, what do? They make a giant picture of Donald Trump leaned up, breaking the Washington Monument, which is a representative of the whole occult underbelly in Washington, D.C. So there is a very much a supernatural element in addition to the federal bureaucracy and the Obama holdovers and all the rest of them. And hopefully during these programs, you'll get the opportunities to discuss, are some of these people true believers in their occult commitment to overthrowing this presidency, or are most of them really just pawns that don't really even understand what's happening, right?
Yeah, and over the next 4 weeks, we'll get into that more. We'll kind of move from the political into the spiritual. And of course, Tom, that's kind of your bailiwick, as you're the author of Apollyon Rising 2012, Zenith 2016, which deals with some of the occult aspects of how Washington, D.C. is laid out, even just the very geometry of how the streets were laid out and where the certain monuments and memorials are located and what they represent. And I also want to touch on something, too, that I think is really cool, that in addition to these three books, a couple of books that have been out of print for about 100 years are coming back, which give you an idea of what we are dealing with here. A book from 1879, Fallen Angels and Heroes of Mythology, and then a book called The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, which was actually a reference material for a group, a multidisciplinarian group inside the government that called itself the Collins Elite, investigating the UFO phenomenon, and concluded it was demonic because of that book, which was published in, 1909?
Yeah, both of these were published over 100 years ago, and I'm glad you mentioned them because, we're moving toward the holiday season. This is like the perfect two-volume, hardback deluxe editions of these two books. Defender Publishing, because of these programs that we're doing, decided to put these back into print after 100 years, and we're going to be giving those away free. People will find out about that in the commercial.
Well, let's get back to, I guess, a definition of a term that gets thrown around a lot, and that is globalism. And Colonel Maginnis, you talk about this, or define it in your book, The Deeper State. What is globalism?
It's really the progressives trying to control the world. They want to control all of government. They don't want one world democratic government. They want government under their control. It's feudalism. Feudalism, basically, they're saying we're over-consuming, we need to reduce the amount of consumption, and they want to dictate that. It's about population control. You know, the likes of CNN's Ted Turner says we need a world of 500 million, not of 7+ billion. And of course, they'll use eugenics to get there.
Right.
It's about a host of issues that is bringing a self-righteous elite to the control of all world power centers, whether it's cultural, political, or economic. You know, one world monetary system that they control, the 666 issues and the like. So it's a real phenomenon. Some are true believers. It's really humanism in a religious form. These people believe this, and of course they have a lot of money. They're throwing the Soroses are throwing their billions of dollars at acquiring control. And they've done a phenomenal job, in part because a lot of well-meaning people are either turning their eyes to this or they don't care. And I hope it's not the latter.
Well, we need to take a quick break here, but when we come back, Carl, I want to throw the question to you about how this plays out prophetically, because that is an area that you focused on in your most recent books. We're talking about globalism with the authors of the new books, The Deeper State, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Maginnis, Carl Gallups, author of Gods and Thrones, and Tom Horn, author of the new book, Saboteurs. Skywatch TV continues right after this.
The Trump administration is now vowing to crack down and punish deep state saboteurs.
Today, America is being manipulated through a Washington-based shadow government.
This is a war now, the deep state against you and the President of the United States.
The artificial chaos engineered by elites and advanced by enemies of democracy is being propagandized by a devoted media machine to take down President Trump.
I submit to you that the establishment that you talk about, the so-called deep state, exists on both sides, the left and the right, and President Trump is up against both of them.
But this is not the whole story. A much more sinister quest behind the deep state is at work to usher in a final world order.
He's an outsider. He's not them. He's not part of the club. You know, he hasn't been through the initiation rites. He didn't belong to the secret society. He didn't belong to the secret society. The secret society.
They're trying to cheat you out of the future and the future that you want. They're trying to cheat you out of the leadership you want.
Globalists, secret societies, and world power brokers anticipate the insidious arrival of a messianic strongman they call the Gray Champion. Now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn joins a senior analyst from the Pentagon and a retired police detective to bring you the shocking truth behind an ancient cabal almost too fantastic to believe.
If these forces are successful, this country will not survive.
They have a plan for your future, but you can know their secret and stop them in their tracks. Get ready. Saboteurs is coming this October 2017.
America is being manipulated by sinister occult forces and a Washington-based shadow government. But now, for the first time ever, expert on occultism and best-selling author Dr. Thomas Horn is joined by senior analyst from the Pentagon, Colonel Bob Maginnis, and retired police detective Carl Gallups to expose these nefarious forces. Skywatch TV is proud to announce the Saboteurs Collection. When you order the new books, Saboteurs, Gods and Thrones, and The Deeper State from Skywatch TV, you'll also receive free of charge for a limited time the exclusive oversized hardback collector editions of the classic 2-volume set, The Devils and Evil Spirits of Babylonia, and The Fallen Angels and the Heroes of Mythology.
These two timeless masterpieces, finally in print again after 100 years, are the perfect gift for the scholar or Bible student in your life, and hold a retail value of over $60 all by themselves, but are included absolutely free when you purchase the limited time Sabbateurs collection. But that's not all. You'll also receive the never-before-aired DVD Off the Record, featuring exclusive interviews with Dr. Thomas Horn, Lieutenant Colonel Robert Maginnis, and Detective Col Gallups, further exposing the dark secrets of globalist elites and how to stop them in their tracks. This content is only available in this exclusive offer and will not be aired anywhere else. Finally, you'll also receive The Shadow Hand, the over 24-hour Steve Quayle and Tom Horn definitive audio series on CD. This audio collection discloses the terrifying truth behind the infamous WikiLeaks dumps, the shadow government, and so much more. This unprecedented special offer, sold separately, holds a retail value of over $175. Yours now for only $29.99 plus shipping and handling. The holiday gift season is coming, and you won't find this collection anywhere else. So don't delay. Order the Sabbateurs collection for somebody you love now at skywatchtvstore.com or call 1-844-750-4985.
Welcome back to Skywatch TV. I'm Derek Gilbert. Joining me on the panel today, Lieutenant Colonel Bob Maginnis, author of the new book, The Deeper State, Pastor Col Gallups, author of Gods and Thrones, and the author of the new book, Sabbateurs, Tom Horn. Carl, you've given a number of presentations, and with your last book, When the Lion Roars, talked about the three booms of prophecy, and how we are living in the most prophetic time since
the first coming
of Jesus Christ.
Yeah.
Now, as Colonel Maginnis said before the break, globalism is a drive to try to put the world basically under their control. How does that fulfill prophecy?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because, you know, to have globalist agendas as world leaders is not necessarily an evil thing. What I mean is, even ancient Israel realized it had to have military compacts with surrounding nations, trade compacts with surrounding nations. So those are globalist ideals without having a globalist agenda or a global agenda, one world order agenda. So, as Colonel Maginnis just so brilliantly executed, that agenda, the globalist agenda, of bringing one world currency, one world government, one world thought, population control, all of these things. That is demonic. It is the spirit of Antichrist. It is prophesied in the Word of God as a part of the main driving agenda of the last days before the return of Jesus Christ. We are the first generation in the history of the planet to see the rise, of course, of the United States of America, the largest Christian nation the planet has ever known, a 2,600-year prophecy, 2,600-year-old prophecy of Israel returning to the land. We're almost 70 years on the other side of that. And we've watched the Middle East implode, we've watched the rise of ISIS, we've watched Syria sink into an irreconcilable civil war. Those are the words of Putin himself. We've watched China build its first international military base, supplying troops to Russia in Syria. We're watching Russia and Iran in compact. We're watching China and North Korea in compact. We're watching Iran and North Korea in nuclear talks and compacts. We're watching all of this implosion, national borders imploding and border crisis in the European nations, in the United States of America. Department of Homeland Security, FBI, says that they're tracking ISIS cells in all 50 states of the United States. So we're watching all of these things converge, the runaway exponential growth of technologies that are moving towards abject evil. And most of what I just said is funneling down, converging and funneling towards this ideal of a globalist agenda, ultimately headed, the Bible says, by one known as the son of perdition, the abomination that causes desolation, the Antichrist, the one who throws truth to the ground, all of these things. And the Word of God told us 2,000 years ago that in the days before the return of the Lord, and parenthetically, after the return of Israel, and that's where we are. That's where we are. We are living, we're the first generation to live on the other side of the return, or of the coming of the Messiah, and then the return of Israel, the first two booms of prophecy. The only boom left is the return of Jesus Christ. But in the middle is this globalist community, this globalism agenda headed by what we know as the Antichrist. And the world is just caving in that way. And it is deeply prophetic, it is deeply spiritual, it's right before our eyes. World leaders who don't even, I doubt if they've ever even read the scriptures, don't have a clue what they're speaking of. They continually use biblical language in describing what their dreams are for this globalist agenda. That's where we are. These are extremely prophetic times.
And in your book, and also you wrote a chapter in Saboteurs, in which you asked this question, okay, Donald Trump was elected. It does look and feel very much like Brexit. Does this mean the globalists have lost, so they're going to lay down now and die? And you make the very effective case, no. In fact, there's a reason why. And this is unprecedented in American geopolitics that a sitting president is elected, Trump is elected, and the former president goes a mile across town, opens up an office, and even in the Beltway they're saying it is a pseudo third term presidency of Obama, because they're not going to lay down and die. They're not going to let this go. They have way too much to lose. And so, yeah, I mean, it's literally a declaration. This is why Michael Savage, guys like that, they say we're actually entering now into another civil war.
Yeah. They see this as a temporary inconvenience, but it is one about which they are livid.
Right.
And they are deadly serious.
Now, Bob, what role did Donald Trump's position on globalism play in his surprising election?
Well, Hillary Clinton was a clear globalist, an embracer of the UN, an embracer of international organizations, an embracer of progressivism, an embracer of everything that I outlined earlier with regard to globalism. I believe that there's a general sense in the country that, you know, that's not the direction that America wants. You know, after all, America first, you know, make America great again. You know, that resonated with the American people. And yet, what the Clintons and their machine and what the left wants to do is to make us all conduits of the United Nations and the world community. They don't want America to have national borders. They don't want us to stop the illegal immigration of people in this country. They don't want big government. They don't want the things that Hillary Clinton came to represent. They want something, the vision that Mr. Trump chaired during the campaign. And so they're, you know, viscerally reacting to that sort of message and saying that's going to be the end of us. Well, you know, for what Carl pointed out in terms of a spiritual dimension, that's resonating throughout Washington, the power center of this country, and certainly arguably across the nation. And then it's also, you know, being helped by a complacent media that is spewing all sorts of distortions to the American people. The truth is available. However, you know, if you're sitting in middle America today, you're not hearing the truth about what's happening in Washington today.
Complacent and complicit.
Complicit.
Absolutely.
Yeah. When I first got into broadcasting in 1980, there was a limit on how many broadcast outlets a single company could own. 7 AM, 7 FM, 7 TV. Now, you know, that's gone, and you've got companies that own 1,500 radio stations, hundreds and hundreds of television stations. What is it? You know, just a handful of companies control like 90% of the media out there.
That was necessary for the globalist agenda to advance.
Oh, absolutely.
It's almost like that was planned.
Sure it was.
Yeah. We were saying at breakfast this morning, George Orwell may have missed the date in his book 1984, but he certainly foresaw doublethink and newspeak and the way that the government would essentially own media, right, and use it to propagandize their message, their will, and also to use it to negatively stereotype anybody that didn't agree with their talking points.
Carl, as you travel around, I know you speak at conferences and around the country, and you know, get to meet a lot of people from different parts of the country. What kind of feedback do you get from people? And we just have a couple of minutes here in this program. What kind of feedback are you getting from people as they begin to perceive the almost the lockstep opposition, not just from politicians on the left, but from the media?
Well, let me speak from a pastoral standpoint. That's an excellent question, and there are many veins of the answer, but let me speak from a pastoral aspect. Most of the people that I speak to in all of these venues, TV, radio, conferences, etc., they get what we're talking about, and or they're getting it and they want to know more, which is why this is so important, what we're doing today. But the thing that saddens my heart, and it's backed up by George Barna, long investigations and polls, the thing that saddens my heart is that the vast majority of these people I meet, they come to me after a conference we've done, after I've brought a message and others have brought messages. They say, we're not getting this from our pulpits. We're getting three ways to feel better about ourselves, and 2 ways to have more money, and 6 ways to make somebody else feel nice. You know, but they're not getting this kind of information.
Critical information.
In the majority, watch this, of the conservative evangelical pulpits. Now that's what George Barna found in all of that. So that's what I'm hearing. There's this angst amongst the Christian community in America. We want to be educated on this. We want to know. We want to know how the scriptures are lining up with the geopolitical events and the prophetic events, and we want to know what's our place in the midst of it. How do we live in the midst of it?
Yeah. We are approaching a critical point in American history, in world history. We just have about a minute left. Say, take a half a minute. Where do you think we go from here, Bob?
Hopefully not civil war.
Yes.
But I see indications that we might, where the nation is divided politically. The nation is divided spiritually, as Carl indicates. You know, there is a core of people in this country that believe we're going in the wrong direction, that believes richly that these could be the end times. And they're trying to do whatever they can to bring the rest of the world to the recognition as to how bad things really are and how spiritually blind they have been. I don't know if we'll get there, but I certainly pray that every day that we will move the ball in the direction before it's too late.
Carl, with just about half a minute to go.
Yes, I also pray that we do not wind up with a civil war wherein we watch people kill each other on our front yards and in our fields, like happened before.
But there are factions that are trying to make that
Trying to make it happen. But the fact is, we are engaged in a deep spiritual civil war, and now we are testing whether that nation or any other nation so conceived and so dedicated can long endure. We shall see. But in the meantime, the third boom of prophecy is close.
We're talking about the election of Donald Trump, and in a broader sense, the prophetic implications of the globalists' war to, well, even, they may not realize it, but fulfill Bible prophecy by taking us to a one-world government. This conversation will continue over the next few weeks and continue as web exclusives at skywatchtv.com. With Colonel Bob Maginnis, Pastor Carl Gallups, and Tom Horn, I'm Derek Gilbert, and we thank you for watching as we keep watch. This is Skywatch TV.